Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to review another new air rifle from ReAxis. It is the Ruger Yukon. It comes in .177 caliber and .22 caliber. This is the .177 caliber. I decided to review it instead of the .22 caliber because I've done several more gas spring piston gun reviews in the 1,000 foot per second class, and it would give us more guns to compare it to. It's a good looking rifle. It is 44.8 inches long, weighs 9 pounds. It comes with Ruger's SilencAir noise suppressor, which does a very good job. It will not quiet a supersonic pellet. I got a decibel reading of 115.1 decibels shooting alloy pellets. But shooting any pellet 8 grains or heavier, I got decibel readings from 92.1 to 93.9. That is very backyard friendly. I don't like that the true glow fiber optic sight up front is so exposed. It should be domed. It looks like it'd break off quite easily. We got some nice bluing on the barrel and the receiver, which houses the new ReAxis gas piston. It has wood stock, and the wood stock has carved in checkering. It's not stamped in like so many others, and it grips your hand very nicely. It feels very good. It's a little rough around the edges. You can see a lot of flaws on the edges, but overall I'll take that carved in checkering over the pressed in any day. It has the same thing on the pistol grip, but let's see if I can get that without a shadow on there. So you can see the lines going across. It has a nice raised G-piece for left and right-handed shooters with the Ruger logo there, and a good rubber butt pad. It has got Ruger's Weaver adapter on it. They seem to have improved on it. I haven't had any troubles with the newer rifles. This gun comes with 3-9 by 32 millimeter non-adjustable objective scope. I found the scope quite usable at 20 yards. I got a clear sight objective and a clear reticle up to 8 power, so that's pretty decent. I think for the price of a $189.95, they probably should have put a 40 millimeter adjustable objective scope on it. And this rifle has the same trigger on it as the Octane, also with the ReAxis gas piston. And this one is quite a bit different than the trigger on the Octane as far as the way it acts. The one on the Octane, it was very stiff, but I knew right when it was going to break. This one, it is so far back, so close to the trigger guard, that I'm actually pulling on the trigger guard because the trigger guard is quite wide and it's just too far back. And I had a ton of problems with the safety because the safety forward is unsafe and you got to actually pull back to release it, and I don't like that. And every time I'd have to readjust my hand, bump this, and it's back on safe and you can't pull the trigger. And I must have done that a dozen times, readjusting my hands. That's frustrating when you go to shoot and the gun's unsafe. Might not be such a big deal shooting from the bench, but if you got a squirrel lined up, you go to pull that trigger and it doesn't fire, you're going to be pissed off. I think that's something that they have to address. Okay, let's back up for a moment and go back to when we first pulled this rifle out of the box and go over a couple of things. Okay, I had to pop the stock off to tighten up the barrel pivot bolt. I could feel some play in the barrel when it was dangling, and also one of the stock screws was loose, and as you can see, only one of the stock screws had blue thread lock around it. The other one did not, and that one was loose. And one thing I want to point out, if you do this with one of these air guns, you see all those pins going through the trigger mechanism. There's like 4 pins or more, 5 pins, and these pins are just floating in there. So if you can see, these pins just float very freely in there. So if you take the stock off, make sure the rifle is upside down like this, so you lift the stock off from the top. And if you've got to lay the rifle on the side, put a piece of masking tape around here to keep those pins from falling out. Otherwise you might have trouble. I'm not prepared to disassemble one and see, you know, how difficult this is. This is the case with just about any ReAxis rifle, but it looks like it's especially challenging with the new trigger assemblies that they have with the ReAxis gas piston. So be very careful when taking the stock off. There's a lot of pins in there, like 5 pins. Have the rifle perfectly upside down when you remove the stock, and then if you got to remove it and lay it down, put a piece of masking tape around that to hold those pins in place so they don't fall out. Okay, I think ReAxis needs to pay a little more attention to their quality control, because of the last 3 ReAxis rifles that I bought, the Ruger Blackhawk Elite had no blue thread locker on any of the stock mounting bolts. The ReAxis Octane had blue thread locker on it, but the barrel pivot bolt was a little bit loose, and I had to replace the breech seals on both of them because of that stupid tag they stick in the breech. This gun, even though it had that tag in the breech, it's the first rifle that I've had from ReAxis since my Airhawk Elite where I did not have to replace the piston seal. And this one, when I went to check the barrel pivot bolt, because when the rifle was cocked, you could feel some sideways play in the bolt. Well, that's mismachining in there. The hole through the barrel is larger than the pin that goes through. The bolt itself was tight, but one stock screw was loose because it had no blue thread locker on it. The other one was tight because it did. And also we have really different acting triggers. Even though they're identical triggers, the triggers act greatly different between the 2 air rifles. So, and I do not like the way they have made the safety on it. The safety was fairly snug on the Octane. On this one it's very loose and it gets bumped forward way too easily. Okay, now let's take a look at the performance numbers. Okay, I printed out all the chronograph readings here, so anybody that wants to can just pause or backpedal and see the exact numbers for any given pellet. Shooting the RWS Hypermax 5.2 grain, we had a low of 1175, a high of 1195, an average of 1182. That's 58 feet per second lower than the claimed feet per second, but it's on par with the average 1000 foot per second break barrel air rifle. They generated 16.14 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Shooting the RWS Hobby 7 grains, a low of 1027, a high of 1036, an average of 1032. That is only 18 feet per second lower than the factory claim, so it's not too bad. And like I say, it's right on par with like the Crossman gas spring air rifles, and about 40 feet per second faster than the Gammo Bone Collector Bull Whisper. That attained 16.56 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Our most accurate pellet was the JSB Match Diablo Exact 8.44 grain. It had an average of 947 feet per second, extreme spread of 10.54, generating 16.84 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. The most consistent pellet was the H&N Barracuda Hunter Extreme, averaging 879 feet per second with an extreme spread of only 6.25 feet, only generating 15.89 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. The most powerful pellet was the H&N Barracuda 10.65 grain, with a low of 829.1, a high of 882.4, an average of 856.6, and I will say that 3 of the pellets were 854 to 856, and then one was way low at 829 and one was way high at 882. I don't know why, but they shot very well. They were one of the more accurate pellets. That generated 17.36 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. So, all in all, the rifle did good. It's pretty much on par with the Crosman nitro piston air rifles, and a couple feet more foot-pounds of muzzle energy than the Gamo gas piston air rifles. Okay, now that we know what the numbers are, they're pretty average, about the same as the Crosman, and a little bit better than the Gamos in this class. So now let's take it outside and see how accurate this thing is. Okay, after about 10 shots getting the scope sighted in, I then ran 10 shots of 9 different pellets, and the results are these. That's 10 shots of the Crosman Premier Hollow Point, 10 shots of the H&M Barracuda Hunter Extreme 9.6 grain, 10 shots of the H&M Barracuda 10.65 grain with a 4.50 millimeter head, 10 shots of the H&N Barracuda Match 10.65 grain with a 5.53 millimeter head. It did not like them near as well. 10 shots of the H&N Cro-Magnon 9.26 grain, 10 shots of the JSB Match Diablo Exact 8.44 grain. They didn't go anywhere near the bullseye like the others, but they did group quite well. We got 10 shots of the H&N Barracuda Hunter 10.34 grain pellets. This is 10 shots of the H&N Field Target Trophy 8.64 grain, and then these 10 here are the RWS Superpoint Extra 8.2 grains. But the odd part of this group is to get them in on that bullseye, on that target, I had to shoot at this bullseye. They shot that far to the left. But out of all of the pellets, it's kind of a toss-up between the JSB Match Diablo Exact 8.4 grain and the H&N Barracuda 10.65 with the 4.50 millimeter head. So I'm going to do the target test using those pellets. Okay, we'll be shooting H&N Barracuda 10.65 grain with a 4.50 millimeter head at a distance of 20 yards. The camera is about 19 yards away. We can't mess up because we only got 5 pellets left. Now that shot group was nowhere near as good as the first 10 round group, but all in all not bad. I think we're going to try 5 shots with the JSBs. Well, out of the 5 shots where I was actually shooting at the target, 4 are all in less than the size of a dime, and just 1 pulled right, so it can be accurate. It's kind of frustrating with the trigger for me, but the gun can be accurate. Well, I cannot decide whether or not I like this rifle. I just had an absolutely terrible time shooting it from the bench. I could not get my hand wrapped around the grip and get it comfortably on the trigger where I was pulling on the trigger and not the trigger guard, and constantly bumping that safety back on. Yet, shooting it from the shoulder at 10 yards, I had a fantastic group. Here, I'll show you the group I got at 10 yards standing, shooting from the shoulder. Now, as much difficulty as I had with this trigger shooting from the bench, when I took it to a standing position at 10 yards shooting from the shoulder using the artillery hold, this is what I was able to do at 10 yards standing from the shoulder position. So I can actually shoot it better from the shoulder than I can from the bench. So, like I say, I can shoot this thing fine from the shoulder. It doesn't bother me. From the bench, it is just absolutely terrible. I'm not a fan of the really light colored wood stock. I prefer slightly darker wood stock, but it is attractive. The gun overall is attractive. The scope performed just fine. I think it should still have a better scope for $190 though. I like the fact that the checkering is carved in, but it's kind of a sloppy job. Overall, I think for the money, I would not go out and buy this gun. You know, it's got decent power. It's about the same as the Crossman's. It does have better power than the Gamos. Like I said, you'd have to try it out yourself. If you got big hands, that trigger might work just fine, and you might get one where the trigger is more like it was in the Octane or somewhere in between. Like I say, with the inconsistency we're getting, I'm a little bit fed up with Umarex, but I won't write them off yet. It's a decent rifle for the money. It's not a great rifle for the money. I really like the fact that it is super quiet at, indoors, outdoors, shooting the heavy pellets. I did not try the open sights. It's got nice fiber optic sights, front and rear, fully adjustable for elevation and windage. I don't know what else there is to say about it. You'll have to take a chance and see how yours turns out, because they're so different. I'm really having a difficult time making a judgment call on this one. But that's my review of the Ruger Yukon 1.77 caliber. Thank you for watching.